I dug into my video history and saw that I talked about Saved by the Bell a couple times in the past. I talked about the murder mystery episode, which is fun. I'm a sucker for a murder mystery, especially in a big fancy mansion. It's a fun episode. Stuff like Clue. Love that stuff. So I wanted to check that out again. And I talked about Jesse's infamous breakdown, which a lot of people have criticized, but personally I thought was very well done as a kid and even now. I thought the acting was good. I thought it was a genuinely dramatic moment in the show. Maybe it's because it is such a big dramatic moment in a show as cheesy as Saved by the Bell is. Maybe that's where some of the silliness plays in. I think it's more the tone of the show. Anyways. But as a whole, Saved by the Bell is one that a lot of people know. It's got a very distinctive look to it. It's definitely had a cultural imprint, let's say. I've seen pop-ups for it. I've seen sketches, reunions, interviews. And I got into it as an elementary schooler. A neighbor got me into this show at a sleepover. And we just couldn't stop watching the episodes. They were so entertaining. I watched with family members, watched with neighbors, watched with friends. It was a genuinely very interesting show. I always enjoyed it when it was on. I liked the Miss Bliss seasons. I liked the high school seasons. I don't think I liked the college seasons as much, but there was still some charm to it. I think they had a beach season too where they all got summer jobs. That was kind of fun. I don't remember as much about those ones. I remember the Tori episodes. I watched a lot of TV. And I would say, as a kid, I wanted to be, hear me out, I wanted to be like Zack as a kid because I wanted to be that person who could break the rules and creatively scheme, get in trouble but not really suffer consequences, not really get in trouble, but break the rules and still look cool doing it. This is before I had critical thinking skills, by the way. But I like that it definitely created this image of high school as, oh, life's gonna be a party. For some reason, media showed high school in this really amazing light. Like, oh my god, you're gonna be, a lot of it was in California, you're gonna be in California and you're gonna have friends, you're gonna have love interest. That was not really true. Okay, I had a love interest in high school, but friendships were not so great. Certainly was not that kid going to parties all the time. But it was still a fun show. There was still this element of wish fulfillment that Saved by the Bell definitely provided. Felt a good chemistry with the characters. You felt, yeah, they're tropey, but they still had a good camaraderie and a good connection. And I feel like a lot of different personalities could get into any one of those. Again, now we're seeing how terrible Zack Morris is. It was actually a fan of mine who sent me the Zack Morris's trash videos. They're so funny. It was Oliver Q. Saka, who I believe it was, who sent that to me. So thank you, dude. I appreciate that so much. They're great. But Saved by the Bell, I thought there's something really, really comforting about the show, even though it's not, when I say this, when I occasionally say stuff like, oh, it's not a great show, I mean something like, oh, it's not the Citizen Kane of television, it's not Breaking Bad, it's not Cheers, it's not Seinfeld. Granted, I couldn't even get into Seinfeld. Yeah, I know. I'll give it another chance. But Seinfeld is one I could never personally get into for some reason. Anyway, Saved by the Bell, it's just, there's something comforting about that show. There's something so lighthearted and so fun about it, and it's so much fun deconstructing it with a modern eye, with a critical eye. Now that we have critical thinking skills, it's fun to look at how terrible Zack Morris's actions really are. Blonde scumbag. He is so terrible. And yeah, he regularly prostitutes the girls, he screws over Screech and Slater, screws over Slater's future, regularly abuses Screech. Jesus. Seems like they would all have happier lives without him. I also heard a conspiracy theory. I know this is so rambly, but I heard this conspiracy theory that the Miss Bliss seasons are what's really happening, where Zack's the one getting in trouble all the time and actively being taught lessons, and the high school seasons and beyond are what he thinks are happening, where he imagines himself as this really cool guy who never gets in trouble and has a great camaraderie, and he's the top dog. That was a fun theory. I can see that. I'd have to watch more episodes, because I actually remember really liking the Miss Bliss seasons just as much as I liked the traditional high school seasons. It was, again, it's just a fun, dumb show. It's one of those, we know it's not technically groundbreaking. I don't think anyone was actively taking life lessons from this show. I think most people I've come across knew it as, it's fun, it's dumb, it's comfort food, essentially. And there was something comforting about that. I know I said that already, but still, even though the characters are not super in depth or anything, but there is still a charm that comes from the actors. There is still a sense of fun to it. There is still this creativity. I like the sets. I love how cheesy those outfits are. Something about how 80s and 90s it is. Something about how its very specific time period does lend itself to a lot of creative visuals. Something about that color scheme and the big phones and the big hair, the big curly permed hair, and the obnoxiously bright outfits. I don't know what it is, just there's a certain aesthetic to it that adds to its really cheesy vibe. I'm not so sure, because generally I do have a harder time getting into teen shows and high school shows. I like a lot of shows that are set in high school, because I find, from a character development standpoint, people do change so much in high school, and there's still a lot of familiar experiences a lot of people can talk about, but there's enough variation that you can still get something new out of it. I find storytelling-wise that very interesting. And I guess something about Saved by the Bell, it's so stereotypical, and yet it does do a few new twists and turns with the characters, and it plays with it enough that it does feel like its own thing. I think part of it is it doesn't feel like it's taking itself too seriously. I've seen teen shows, particularly modern teen dramas. I never liked teen dramas, by the way. I never got into Dawson's Creek. I never watched a lot of these shows like Seventh Heaven and The OC, One Tree Hill, that really took themselves seriously. Saved by the Bell didn't. I think I could appreciate that more, especially with being in middle high school, even college. There is an angst and a melodrama, and there's something about your teenage years that, yeah, there is a silliness to what you take so seriously. And I think that's what Saved by the Bell did really well. It didn't take itself too seriously. It was very lighthearted, fun. Just had the right balance. All these wonderful things came together at the right time. Say favorite episodes. I love the murder mystery episode. I like the episode where in the Miss Bliss season, favorite of the Miss Bliss episodes, I like the one where, Zack Morris's Trash did this one where Zack's being tormented by the Rigmas. It's funny because that's so Raven used the same plot, and it was the same fraternity. It was called the Sigmas, so I get the two confused. The middle school fraternity, where Zack's being tormented by them. That was a fun one. I guess it's fun watching Zack go through hazing, because especially now knowing he puts his friends through hell. And of the high school episodes, generally, I like the one where they were doing a dance contest at the Max, and Casey Kasem's the host. That was really cool. all I remember this one, I hope Zack Morris's trash does this one, the one where he sells the girls' phone numbers. He makes a dating service, and instead Screech, I think, who messes it up, but essentially instead of a video yearbook, the girls are now their phone numbers are accidentally, I can't explain this. He sells the girls' phone numbers as a dating service. That's the best way I can explain it. I remember that one. I remember finding that one funny, and also really, really terrible looking back on it. Another one I liked. Generally, yeah, those ones. Horrible, but they're disguised so well. The horribleness is disguised so well. I tend to like stuff that's a mixture of whimsical but also dark and terrible, because I think that balance is really fun. I think with Saved by the Bell, it's not too saccharine, which is great. There is, and now you can look back on it and say, hey, that's really terrible, or, oh wow, look at what people wore back then. That's always fun. It's a fun show to talk about. It's a very familiar show to a lot of people, and whether you enjoy mocking it or genuinely enjoy watching it, there's still a sense of fun watching it. There's still a sense of fun with the show. I've repeated myself enough. Saved by the Bell. It's familiar. It's fun. Zack Morris is trash.